things, and then your train is heading this direction, and somebody comes along that's running up next to you as you're on your train, and like the danger train is rolling, baby. It's rolling 100 miles an hour, faster if possible, right? On fire, right towards its destination of utopia, right? Of evolution and self-cultivation and evolution of oneself, you know, and adding layers and living life as art and the DOLCE VITA lifestyle. It's heading that direction, baby. It's got purpose, right? It's rolling, full steam ahead. Yo, danger here. Today we're going to talk about the 90-day rule. And you probably think you're so, well, 3-month rule. I call it the 3-month rule, actually. But other people might know this as the 90-day rule. But I, as I said, refer to it as the 3-month rule. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, this must be one of your, personal training videos. I will get this technology correct eventually. It's lighting. I know it's lighting. Videos about training, about health, wellness, nutrition, fitness, all that. But it's not. Although I guess it could be. This is about relationships. This is about sex. This is about dating, if you will. The 3-month rule has to do with the cuddle drug oxytocin. It has to do with human nature. It has to do with biology. And ultimately, it's not really sexy as far as it's not romantic. So if you want to hear the Disney World version of it, this is probably not your version, but the 3, it is true. Nevertheless, it's true. It's proven to be true in my life, and I'm pretty sure it's proven to be true in yours. So the 3-month rule that I've always tried to institute goes a little something like this. If you're dating someone, and when I say dating, I don't mean it's serious. You could have a partner. Hey, I don't judge. You could have multiple partners. And if you don't want to, quote unquote, fall in love with somebody, after 3 months, really, to be honest, you want to be on the safe side, less than that. If you're seeing this person consistently, especially if you're seeing them, especially if you're only seeing them, in other words, you're kind of an isolated version because you're not seeing anybody else. So there's no perspective there. You've lost perspective, which is ultimately, and we'll get into this in other videos, what people mistake love for is loss of perspective a lot of times, or insecurity. And if you've lost perspective, you're in danger if that person's not good for you, or if you can't identify that that's what's going on. And even sometimes if you can identify what's going on, it makes it very difficult to get out of it without a lot of pain, because you have a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of body chemistry things going on that a lot of people, again, it's not very romantic, but it's true. Now I'm going to start with the premise of this. Biology plays a huge role in relationships, clearly, right? I don't think today's world, it's kind of hard to know what's appropriate to say and what not to say. But, I don't think I'm going out on a limb here and saying that biology plays a huge role in why we do the things we do, what we do in relationships, our behaviors within the constructs of a relationship. And biology basically doesn't give a shit about our convenience. It cares about a couple things: survival and survival of species, your own personal survival, and then to perpetuate the species and taking care of the kid, your offspring. So this is why men and women are created differently, right? Women have different skills than we have, and we have different skills and attributes that we bring to the table, ultimately for the betterment of the species and the child that we have, which carries on the DNA. So with that said, biology is going to do whatever it needs to do to make sure that happens to that end, and doesn't really give a shit about our convenience, doesn't care about our social constructs, doesn't care about wedding ceremonies, doesn't care about your finances, doesn't care about what your feelings are, okay? In fact, it'll actually use your feelings against you to get what it wants, which is, again, procreation of the species. So you got to be aware of that, because if you're not aware of that, it will make you aware of that. You may not be aware of that right now. I'm about to make you aware of that. This is why I always pay attention to the 3-month rule. I know that if I'm dating a person or seeing them, or maybe it's just casual sex, again, I don't judge. Or if I'm dating multiple people, that I've got to be careful, because if I spend too much time on one person in particular, if I don't really like them, I can develop feelings for them. Even a guy, it's not just for women, guys can do this too. Less so, I think, for a guy like me, because I'm aware of this and because I've had a lot of experiences like this. So I kind of separate myself from it, which I think is a good thing. I don't mean that in a bad way or like an apathetic way or, you know, lacking heart or whatever, not having a soul. I don't mean that. I mean in terms of I'm aware of it, I'm acutely aware of it, and I'm not going to be a victim of it. You know, because I have in the past, of course, before I knew these these very important life lessons. I know that if I'm not dating multiple, if I'm dating one person or dating, the more people you date, the more perspective you have. You know, so a lot of people might look at it as a bad thing. Again, when I say dating, it could be just sex. It could be something that's more spiritual. It could be something that you just like hanging out with a person. And there's different forms and variations and associations and degrees of just a variety of different relationships that we all have. So it doesn't have to be anything serious, but it will become serious to you, even if it's somebody that's not good for you, because of several things. Loss of perspective. You're cutting other people off. Like if you start seeing somebody for whatever reason, or if you're in an insecure state, for example, a lot of guys that you talk to, I've asked many of my friends this, and I'm like, well, let me ask you something. All the times that you've fallen in love in your life, falling in love, which is another topic altogether. What is love, really? What is romantic love versus parental love, non-conditional love? All those times that you've fallen in love, what was going on at that point in time in your life? Were you like in a really good, happy state? Or were you in a state of desperation or pain at some point? Were you experiencing discomfort or not in the best mind space, or you're just a little more desperate than usual because of other things going on in your life or whatever? And 9 out of 10 times, I know this doesn't sound sexy, but 9 out of 10 times, yeah, that's the case. Because I theorize that most guys, for women too, but I think for most guys, or a lot of guys anyway, their default isn't to get into a relationship if they have options, okay? Their default is to enjoy themselves, play the field, and again, do different personalities. You know, if you're an introvert, that's less of the case because it's kind of painful for introverts to cultivate relationships and start new ones and things like that. So for people like that, maybe not the case. But for a lot of men and women, this is the case. And so when you cut off or when you have limited relationships, your perspective is quite a bit different than somebody that has a lot of them. And so I always try to look at it like it's not good or bad. It's just what it is. But if you have more experience, you're less prone to these sort of like devastating relationship losses because you kind of know what you're getting into and you understand what's going on inside. You understand it's really just loss of perspective. That's what falling in love is for a lot of people, is insecurities. And it's going to hit people a lot harder if they're insecure. And that's what's going to make them fall in love easier if they're insecure. And they don't have as much experience, which means they don't have perspective. And they're not dating as many people, so they have less perspective. That is a recipe for falling in love. And as I said before, I think a lot of people, they will fall in love in times that are tough, right? because they're not seeing as many people, because maybe they're busy or they're stressed or whatever. They are feeling insecure because they are busy and they're stressed or whatever, more apt to feel that way, and they've lost perspective. So that is the recipe for falling in love for a lot of people. I know it doesn't sound sexy, but think about it. Really think about it. And then they fall into this thing, and they wake up one day and they're like, shit, like I don't have these same feelings anymore. Yeah, you're in a different state now, right? You're noticing things you didn't notice before, and now you don't have those body chemicals going on. So this is the other factor, oxytocin. Now, when it comes to relationships, there's a lot of brain chemicals and body chemicals. There's a lot of chemistry going on there. That's not just oxytocin. You know, there's testosterone, estrogen, you know, all these sort of things. But oxytocin is the cuddle drug. And have you ever experienced this? Have you ever experienced, like, you might be dating, a couple people might be dating one, but you're spending more time with one. Usually you like them more. Or maybe just that's the geography. That's what's convenient for you right now, you know? And you're 3 months in, not so coincidentally, or maybe even a little less. And you start feeling this, I know I felt it, you're like, oh, you know, I want to cuddle with him, right? So some guys are just prone to this cuddling sort of thing. I'm not one of those guys. But that's kind of how I know that I like somebody a little bit more, is that if I'm not so uncomfortable cuddling them afterwards. Because if I'm just having sex with them, I'm not going to try to cuddle you, right? I'm not going to be off-putting, you know, because you are also making contact. It's very intimate still. Sex is intimate regardless. But cuddling is more intimate to me. That's a relationship thing for me. Or at least shows me that I like this person a little bit more than just, you know, just hanging out. So that's oxytocin at work. When you feel that feeling of, oh, I feel like a need to cuddle them, or if I don't want them to get out of bed, I don't want them to leave to go for work. You know, I want to lay in bed with them. Right, we've all been through that. That is oxytocin. That's the cuddle drug. Now, that's a biological trick. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Biology, at all costs, wants you to procreate with that person. Because remember, it's survival species. It wants guys to procreate with a lot of people. Why? Because that spreads, it's a better chance of survival for the species. That's why guys are made the way we're made. We're made, you know, whether, again, your social constructs, social beliefs, I'm just talking about the biological part, right? I'm not talking about the religious aspect of the spiritual aspect of it. I'm talking about strictly biology. It wants us to procreate with as many different females as possible, because that ensures that our DNA is meshing with different immune systems, different types of genes that ensure the survival of species. Okay, so more robust, because you're giving your DNA a chance of survival, because you're spreading with different people, right? That's why there's such a sexual drive and testosterone, and there's such a need for variety. And I know that exists for women as well, but for guys, that's sort of, you know, that's the thing. And that's a true thing. You know, that's biology. You can research that. So it wants you to have sex with that person. So it's going to give you that cuddle drug thing, and it doesn't care about the convenience. It doesn't care about if you're married or not. It doesn't care. That's why it drives there. It doesn't care about, you know, is this person really the best match for me long term, or do we have to read the same type of books or have the same political affiliations? It doesn't give a flying shit about that. It cares about procreating right here, right now. And I know there's a lot of other factors, but that's what biology cares about. And it will trick you to think you're in love with that person and make you not want to leave them, at least right now, right? So it'll put you in a desperate form. Even if you're not somebody who's genuinely desperate, it will put you there because it wants you to stick with this person long enough that you can have a kid with them. And you wake up one day, it's very possible, and you're like, what am I? I don't even really like this person that much. Oh, it sounds terrible. But it's possible. And then you're like, oh my God. But a lot of people don't realize that that's what's going on. That oxytocin has worn off. That's not there anymore, right? Now, I'll give you a similar scenario, right? So you women out there can understand this part of it when it comes to guys, but you're experiencing it too because you have oxytocin as well, of course. A lot of it, more than guys do. A woman, if a woman is healthy, she has a child. Now, I'm not going to speak on behalf of women, but I think a lot of mothers out there will agree with this scenario. If a woman is biologically healthy, like her hormones are normal, healthy levels, and She's just healthy in every way. She has to love her baby. That sounds silly, right? But she has to love her baby. She doesn't have a choice because there's body chemicals that are going to make her. She could have an ugly baby. All right? You don't see very many ugly babies, but they exist. You've seen them. You look at it like, you know, I think that baby's ugly. That is not a good-looking baby. Right? It's a good thing it's a baby. It's got chubby cheeks because that is an ugly creature. But nevertheless, and that's why biology makes them cute and vulnerable looking so that we, just like puppies, so that we take care of them. It's a biological trick, right? You know, there's all kinds of these in nature. You can see them all over the place, right? Well, same thing for a woman, a mother, is no matter how ugly that baby is, how unpleasant it is. I mean, it's shitting itself. It generally doesn't smell very nice, right? It's spewing up spit all over them. Doesn't matter. Mother couldn't care less. First 2 years of life, or a little bit less than that probably, first 2 years of life, it can do no wrong, especially those first 6 months to a year when that baby is its most vulnerable state. It needs its mother the most. That's when those chemicals are in the woman the most and the mother the most, because it needs to make sure that that baby is loved a lot right now, because that baby is completely helpless and vulnerable without the mother. It cannot possibly survive without the mother. So that's biology at work. That's that, you know, the mother doesn't have a choice, even if she wanted to. Even if she wanted to hate the baby mentally, I don't know why you would want to do that, but let's say the mother wanted to. It can't if she wanted to, right? That's why you hear some mothers, oh, I don't want to have a child. I don't want to have a child. It's innate, man. It's innate. You have a kid and suddenly like you're in love with that kid. Nothing you can do about it, even if you wanted to. Okay, if you're generally healthy because of the chemicals. Now, 2 years into it, when it becomes that terrible two, that baby's not doing anything worse than it was doing 2 years ago. The difference is you've changed. You've grown accustomed to the child, and those chemicals have worn off. Biology doesn't. It can. The child is not fully functional, but it's a lot better off than it was in its infancy stage. Correct? So that's why that matters. Same thing goes here for the 3-month rule. That's why parents are so terrified about their 16-year-old daughter meeting some dude, some douchebag that's not good for them. Because they know, even if they're not cognizant about the biological aspect of it, they know it's very easy to fall in love when you're that age. Why? You have less experience. So you have less perspective. What does falling in love entail? Loss of perspective. Do you know yourself? Are you really confident? Who's really confident at 16 years old? Right? Most people have insecurities anyway, but you're really insecure when that age because you haven't been through shit yet. You don't know shit from shit. Therefore, you know, it's very easy to fall in love, and you haven't had many relationships to go through that before, right? And you don't even know what you're experiencing. So you think you're in love when in actuality, you're just feeling your body chemistry is going crazy. You've never felt it before. So I must be in love. I must love this person. Doesn't mean that person's special. Doesn't mean they're Prince Charming, right? Doesn't mean any of that shit. Doesn't mean they're the one, right? All this Disney World nonsense. It simply means that biology, especially when you're that young, because as a female, you know, 16 to like 24, that's reproductive prime. So it wants you to go in that direction now, doesn't it? Doesn't care about your convenience or what's good for you long term. Doesn't care, right? So the 3-day rule, that would be really awesome. The 3-month rule, I have enacted for myself over the years as a general guideline that I go by, and it's really less for me. It's really 2 months. And now this is how it works for me. You can institute this if you want to. I think it's very good. It's very healthy. Maybe it sounds crazy for somebody who has more, you know, conventional views. I'm a little less traditional, but I'm not judging you, so you don't judge me, damn it. Okay. The way this works is this. Pretty simple. I could be dating several people at one time. Be dating one person at one time. But the thing is, if you're only dating one, you really have to watch out because it happens a lot faster in 3 months. That's why it's really good to have that perspective, right? So if you're dating somebody, you're hanging out with them, in any way, it can be serious, it can be not serious, shouldn't be serious at the beginning, right? You're feeling each other out, but yeah, feeling each other out. But anyway, so you're dating them, you're hanging out with them, you're having sex with them. And remember too, is something to keep in mind, if you're a dude and you're having sex with a woman, it's a different experience for them than it is for you. You have to be mindful of that. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. There's gonna be a lot of more especially if you're a guy that has a lot of experience, they're going to have a lot more feelings a lot of times, a lot quicker. I know it's a generalization, but it is true. Talk to women about this and see what they tell you. There is an emotional aspect. That's why they have. So there's an emotional connection there, right? And sometimes we experience that. A lot of times you don't, right? Because we're programmed differently, right? I had to feel some sort of connection, but it's not like what a lot of times they're experiencing, at least not as quickly, right? Especially if it's a guy that's experienced. So keep that in mind. But so if I'm dating a lot of them, or if I'm dating one, I gotta watch if I'm seeing more, because ultimately you're gonna see more of one than you are of some of the other ones. That's just the way it works. That's why you find yourself sometimes dating like 10 people, and then somehow you've whittled it down to one that you're seeing a lot. And you're like, wait a second. Yeah, I know I like her the most, right? I know I like her the most. Or it might just be it was convenient at the time, but now you end up here somehow, and and quite literally you're physically isolated with them. So you're cuddling them, you're having sex with them, and maybe you don't see a lot of people, you're not hanging out. You're going through a rough patch in life, or maybe you're not. You're just, for whatever reason, you're only seeing them a lot. Well, you better watch out, because that oxytocin's about to kick in. And so what I do is, if I don't want to fall in love with this person, especially if I know this is not like a right person for me, and it takes experience to know that. Like, all right, I like this person, but I have no interest in really dating them. Or maybe I'm dating them for a short time, but it's really not. I got to watch myself, because I might start feeling feelings, which are these body chemicals, and you become more desperate. And you're more than likely going to want to hang out with them more because you become used to them. It's comfort zone, right? It's comfort food. Relationships, a lot of times, it's not romantic. That's why I said at the beginning, are comfort food. Right? That's why it's so important that you cultivate yourself so you know what you want and what you like and what you need and what you can bring to the table, because relationships are about what you can bring to the table, not just what the other person or what you want. It's what, it's conglomeration, contribution, And so I'm really careful with that. So I won't sleep. If I'm only sleep with one person, especially, I got to watch that. You got to watch it, because even guys with experiences, you can follow that, and you'll start developing these feelings of, oh, I don't want her seeing other people, or I'm just going to defund, instead of going out like I normally would, I'm just going to hang out with her, which is fine if you like the person. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to make sure that that is the right person for you, because you're going to develop, something, right? So 3-month rule. Now, question I often get is, well, what about when you don't see anybody with that same person? You can sleep with them a year later and you'll have those feelings. Exactly. You can. So what you do is it is possible to maintain a 3-month rule and without falling in love, as long as you, at least for a guy, because I know this is possible because I've done it, but you can see them, especially if you're seeing other people, it's not as much, right? Because you have perspective, okay? But if you're not, you're going to be in a much more desperate of a state, and that's prime environment for getting into a relationship that may or may not be in your best interest. I'm very aware that, okay, I've been seeing this person a lot. I need to be seeing other people, or I need to cut this off for a short period of time, or a long period of time, whatever it is, whatever it happens to be. And then you can come back, revisit it later, or, as long as you're not doing it consistently, right? As long as you're not only seeing that person or you're not just hanging out with them and sleeping with them so consistently that you're feeling that cuddle drug part of it. Some people are more apt to that than others. If you're a guy that doesn't have a lot of sex, doesn't have a lot of relationships, you're going to experience that cuddle feeling much more often than somebody that has and realizes they can identify what they're feeling, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's the 3-month rule. That's what it is. Now, after 90 days, there's 3-month rules. You're going to feel that. I don't care if it's somebody you're not even attracted to. If you stay in that and you're isolating yourself, you better be ready for a relationship. So that's why you got to be careful, because and then if you break it off, you're gonna have some pain there, even if you don't even like the person that much. That's how fucked up it is. Okay, that's biology. That's how strong it is, right? You see biological urges all around you. It's very strong. So you have to be aware of it, so you not become a victim of it. But you also have to understand why that exists to start with. I mean, nature is brilliant. Biology is brilliant. That's how the survival species. That's how we do it. That's why it's good that we have this need for variety as men. It's good. Embrace that. It's good that we have a strong sex drive. It's good for the species biologically. It's not always convenient for the social constructs we have now, because you can get in a lot of trouble that way. That's why it's about balance. But anyway, 3-month rule. If you're not, especially if you're actively dating, it's a smart idea to activate that. If you keep it going more than 3 months, and a lot of times less than that, especially if you're not seeing other people, it's going to happen a lot less than 3 months. So you got to be very careful. If you don't particularly like that person, you better either find other people to date at the same time, or cut it off completely, or see them a lot less. And if you haven't cultivated yourself, and your entire goal and your default setting is a relationship, and that's what you're looking for, and you're actively seeking a relationship, you're probably going to fall for something that's not in your best interest. And it just makes sense. So don't do that. Cultivate yourself. Look at my other videos. Cultivate yourself. Understand what you want. What is your vision? Maybe your goal and vision and purpose is to be in a relationship. I can't tell you what it is. That's not fair for me to do that. But don't let it be your default, because I think a lot of people use that as the default because they've not actually sat and thought about it and then done the due diligence of figuring out what they really wanted, or what they wanted to contribute to society, or what their purpose was, or wanted to work on themselves. And I always say that you have this piece of marble, this nice piece of marble, which is your life, which is your canvas. It's your job to paint on it. But you have to have a vision of what that is, right? You have to have the vision of what that sculpture ultimately is. And you're the only one that can see it. And it's your obligation as a human being to figure out what that is. Because you could be hurting a lot of other people by not doing that work. You could be entering into a relationship where you're not ready, and you're screwing somebody else's, you're not bringing your best self forward, in other words. Or, they know what they want, or they don't even know what you, like, I've dated people that didn't even know what they wanted, right? Me too, I've been that person. Or didn't know what they wanted, didn't know their purpose, didn't know what sculpture they wanted to create out of themselves, what skills they wanted to develop, where they wanted to travel, what feelings they wanted to feel, who they wanted to surround themselves with. They didn't have that crystal clear vision. So they were defaulting to whatever society the next socially appropriate benchmark was. And that's never a good thing. So they never ultimately knew what they wanted. So other people would decide for them their whole life, whether it was their parents, whether it was their teachers, whether it was their friends. They never developed their own voice, or their own sense of what they wanted. It was all like noise from media. It was all like what society told them they should want, right? And it's very easy to fall in that trap. And the reason why this matters in relationships is because if you don't know what you want, you will default to a relationship, and oftentimes a bad one, because you don't even know what you're all about. So do you figure yourself out, and a relationship is nothing but the icing on the cake. And I know you introverts out there won't like this, but I think it is good to date a lot of different people in a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different variety, and a lot of different, tells you what you like and what you don't like. Just, be safe, don't be too crazy. But I think it's good because, again, if we're talking about perspective and that playing a key part in the dynamics of a relationship and the dynamics of falling in love, for sure, falling in love, loss of perspective and insecurities are, key components to falling for somebody that you shouldn't be falling for, or I should say defaulting to a relationship, as opposed to the ultimate, which is you're not desperate for a relationship. You're focused on your own things, and then your train is heading this direction, and somebody comes along that's running up next to you as you're on your train, and like the danger train is rolling, baby. It's rolling 100 miles an hour, faster if possible, right? On fire, right towards its destination of utopia, right? Of evolution and self-cultivation and evolution of oneself, and adding layers and living life as art and the DOLCE should be your lifestyle. It's heading that direction, baby. It's got purpose, right? It's rolling, full steam ahead. And most people are going to try to derail that train. They might not be doing it on purpose, but they are. And sometimes you'll derail, you'll stop that train to let somebody else on, right? And that person might weigh a lot, might be carrying dynamite. They didn't mean to light the caboose on fire. They didn't mean for the train to come off the track, but it's kind of what happened. And you were complicit in that. So instead, you make it the icing on the cake. So you're heading that direction anyway you look at it, because that's your purpose. That is where you're going. And here comes this person, this mate, potential mate, this potential, there's a lot of people run, and they're out. You know what? This train, I like where it's going. They jump on. They decide to jump on. And they're going to ride the caboose next to you. And they're not going to try to turn that train over or get you to ride in their lane or anything like that. They're going to ride in with you. suddenly they're the navigator, right? And you're looking over at them, you're going, you mean you're not going to try to shake this train down? You know? You're going to work with me on this adventure? Oh, this could be fun. That's when the 3-month rule you can reconsider. You know, there's a lot more to it than that, but that's all we're talking about right now is the 3-month rule. So till next time, I am your favorite host, the dangerous one. And till next time, live dangerously, live the Dolce Vita, hit the like button, hit subscribe, share with people. Because from what I see out there, a lot of people need to hear this advice. You know, in this advice, you know, I always say that advice is something that you ask for when you already know the answer, but wish you did. You know, and I'm not here to get on my soapbox and say, hey, this is what I am. But this is advice that I have personally earned through my experiences, and some of them were great and some of them were painful. But ultimately, I think there's some wisdom in there that I like to impart. And I'm not saying it from an arrogant standpoint. I'm saying it from, I wish I knew some of these things maybe when I was 21. I knew some of them. I didn't know all this, right? So if I was somebody growing up younger than I am, I'd want to know this, you know? So, you know, have a lot of fun. Till next time.